welcome back to Typecast Heroes, where we believe typology can save the world. I'm Amanda Fogelson.
And I'm Jessie Miller, and today we are continuing our series on the cognitive functions, and we are starting a new section. So if you've been watching all of our videos, we just finished up with the perceiving functions, and today we are starting the judging functions. We are starting with
FI,
which
Introverted Feeling.
Introverted Feeling, that is correct. So,
quick warning, like we do on every video, that introversion and extroversion in typology is not the same as social introversion and extroversion. So here we are not talking about if you like to party and be around people or if you hate people and want to go read books all day. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about how you actually perceive the world around you, if it's external, internal, all of that. And if you want more background on any of that, go watch our past videos. So the function we're going over today is introverted feeling. And just as a reminder, everyone feels and everyone thinks. So just because you are an introverted feeler does not mean that you're not smart. It does not mean that you aren't intelligent or anything like that. You still think just as thinkers feel. We are also going to be using FI as the abbreviation here. And you'll see it in our posts as well if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram. It's going to be a big F, little I, which means introverted feeling. And another reminder, anybody can be anything. So there's a lot of things in here that you might relate to. FI also might be in your cognitive stack, but maybe it's lower in your cognitive stack. Those are not the types that we are talking about today. So if you relate to anything that we're saying, which you more than likely will, that doesn't necessarily mean that you are an FI user, that it's a dominant function for you. It just means that we're all human and relate to each other. The types that we are specifically talking about today that use FI as a dominant judging function is INFPs, ISFPs, ENFPs, and ESFPs.
all right, so full disclosure, introverted feeling is not just a weepy pool of whiny tears of crying and fussing and complaining. It is one of the ways that people make decisions, and it is a perfectly valid way to make decisions. Introverted feeling is focused inward toward the self. So it is using an introspective process to decide, this is what morals make sense to me, this is what values make sense to me, this is what emotions I feel. And a person who uses introverted feeling to make decisions feels things very, very strongly. They have a lot of emotions and they feel things intensely. It's a hardcore process for them.
Just to reiterate, though, what Jessie was just saying, it's not just feelings as we would normally talk about feelings. It has so much to do with your personal morals and ethics, what you believe in. So I feel like a lot of times we hear often that it's all about, like, you automatically assume it's about how you feel inside about something, and that's not necessarily exactly what this is.
Right? It's not just emotions. So it's not just being angry or sad or depressed. And this one is particularly tricky because when we mentioned in our very first video we ever did about, or our second video about why the Myers-Briggs test was tricky, we talk about how you have to take the test during your default setting. And if you are going through a time period where you are experiencing a lot of emotions, the test is really difficult to take objectively. So you have to keep that in mind when you take these tests. So because introverted feeling is a inside judging function. So the person looks inside themselves for their own values and morals and emotions to make decisions. So they consult themselves and then they make a choice. They spend a lot of time inside their own head. And according to Carl Jung, and read the book Psychological Types because I consulted it today just to make sure that I was correct on this. Because you spend so much time inside yourself, you end up becoming very almost self-conscious about what the people around you are thinking. And that is why it's on an axis with extroverted thinking. So for this reason, introverted feelers are also extroverted thinkers. Quick note on selfishness and introverted feeling, because that is one of those debates that kind of rage in the MBTI community. And if you dive into this even a little bit, you're going to see a lot of arguments about introverted feeling versus extroverted feeling. So I just wanted to clarify a couple things super fast. Introverted feeling can be incredibly empathetic because what happens is an introverted feeler will see someone suffering, and what they do is they put themselves in that person's shoes, and then they feel the pain that they imagine the person going through the pain is experiencing. And so they feel that imagined pain on themselves, and it feels very real to the introverted feeler. So that makes them very compassionate and very sympathetic. I call introverted feeling the inarguable sacred cognitive function because you can't argue it. You can't argue somebody's feelings, somebody's emotions, or somebody's beliefs. So introverted feeling is very personal, it's very important to the person, and it's very valuable.
That's their reality.
Mm-hmm. So now that we're done with the scientific stuff, we're going to kind of jump into the examples. So first we're going to talk about how the introverts will rely on introverted feeling. So there are two of them, and this is the ISFPs and the INFPs. So this means that they go throughout their life doing everything by their moral code. So the first thing they do before they do anything else is they make sure all of their activities align with their moral code and their emotions. Does this feel right to me? And I'm looking at her because
my husband is an INFP. And that's exactly right. That's exactly how he is. He is FI dominant, and that's exactly how he is.
So they will always try to make sure that everything they do aligns with those morals. Now, it gets a little tricky because sometimes when they have lived so long with their emotions, it can become really intense, like we mentioned earlier. And so sometimes they almost become very detached because they have to, because it hurts and it's painful and it's challenging to have to live with so much intensity all of the time. ISFPs and INFPs, I'm here to tell you it's okay to feel all of the things. And I know that it's hard to feel all of those things. And it can be really overwhelming, and I think you should just feel all of it, particularly men, because men feelers get so much junk thrown at them for expressing their emotions and for feeling things. And it's a shame because introverted feeling allows you access to become very creative and become beautiful writers and artists and just very empathetic, compassionate individuals. And if you are constantly trying to squish that or shut it off because of societal expectations, because of your job or your culture, that's a real loss. So society needs to just shut up and let you feel things, in my opinion.
There are so many amazing men who are feelers who can be just the most understanding, loving human beings. And it's almost like they block that off because they feel like it's not how they should be as a man. And then women, same thing. You guys are already kind of taught to be those feelers. And again, the societal expectations is that you'd be more compassionate, more understanding, more all that BS, honestly. But we need you too. And so you can still be strong. You can be a very strong human being and be a feeler. It does not make you weak. Wearing your heart on your sleeve does not make you weak. It makes you so relatable and so loving and kind. And the world needs that.
So now that we covered the introverts, we're going to go cover the extroverts. So this is the ENFP and the ESFP. Now, for extroverts, because their FI is an introverted process and because they lead with a perceiving process, they can actually mistype as thinkers because, as you see in their stack, they have an extroverted thinking process as their third. So what tends to happen sometimes is because they want to stay extroverted, sometimes they skip over their feeling process too much. If they are trying to extrovert too much, they ignore their feeling process altogether. And they can actually test as thinkers. So their feeling and thinking is very close. However, that can be very dangerous and difficult for them because that means they're not checking their actions against their moral code, which can create kind of like a cognitive dissonance for them. It makes them feel like something's not right, something is not matching up. So this is one of those reasons why introverted feeling is so important for an ENFP or ESFP, and it's important for them to know that language because they need to know that they have to have their introverted feeling code down. They have to have the time to know what they believe in, to know what they think is right, to know how they're feeling about things. Because if they're just running around the world exploring and living in the moment and they never stop to think, how does this resonate with me? It's going to seep out in ways that they don't expect, and that's when they'll all of a sudden feel like a rush of sadness or anger or anxiety
or regret or
regret that they don't know what to do with. So that's why introverted feeling is so important for ENFPs and ESFPs to deal with when they make decisions, because they have a tendency to want to just jump to extroverted thinking because they just want to stay extroverted.
It's just comfortable. It's because if you're an extrovert, looking inward is hard and usually uncomfortable when you first start doing it. I know.
And for another thing, ESFPs and ENFPs also tend to usually be artists or actresses or performers or people who do things that they care a lot about, like advocates or teachers. And to do any of those professions, you need to have a lot of heart, and that lives in your introverted feeling. And so you don't want to be shutting that off so that you can continue with your extroverted functions. So my advice for society is you need to encourage the ENFPs and the ESFPs in your life to check in with themselves and to encourage them to have those talks where they look at their feelings, because both ENFPs and ESFPs, they like to talk it out. They want to talk out their feelings. They want to talk about their emotions. They want to talk about their morals. They want to hash it out with you. So be that ear for them, and don't try to like tell them what to do. Just listen to them. Listen to them run it all out for you. And if they need their space, which they won't need it very often, but if they do, let them have it. They may not need it very often. Some ESFPs and ENFPs obviously need more alone time than others. But if they don't need it and they want to like talk it out with you, let them have it.
And they don't want your advice, or
probably not.
Usually not. It's truly just being a listening ear and letting them go off, especially, again, depending on what their experience has been. If they're a male ENFP or ESFP, like they're going to need a different kind of support when it comes to this stuff, especially because that extroverted thinking is going to come out super hard for them, especially in their careers and anything like that.
And remember, the most important thing to remember if you are talking to an INFP, ISFP, ENFP, or ESFP about any of this is that introverted feeling is very sacred and it is very personal to them. Stepping all over it, telling them it's illogical, telling them it's pointless, especially, I'm sorry, I love you, but TI users, introverted thinkers, watch yourselves, because you have a tendency to do this, and I'm guilty of it as one. Stepping all over introverted feeling is not going to do you any good. It does you no good. So don't do it to them. Let them feel what they're going to feel. Let them talk it out. Let them have their emotion. They are allowed to feel things. So as we say in the end of all of these videos, it is important to love and own both of your feeling and thinking functions, because everyone has both. Because being human is hard.
And this should make it just a little bit easier.
Thank you for watching this video. If you want to be part of our research, please, please, please contact us, because we still do need about 900 people.
And like, subscribe, follow on all social media. It helps us out. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We're also willing to chat on Reddit and Discord. So come find us, and we're excited to talk to you.
We'll see you on the next
Typecast hero.
Let's gather around the type fire and sing our type fire song. Our MBTI TYPOLOGY song. And if you feel uncomfortable, then know there's nothing wrong.